Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'll call this meeting to order, and before I begin, I'd like to wish Councillor Trevor Bevan a happy birthday.
Oh, happy birthday!
I'll save money.
And I also want to congratulate CEO Derricott on his 5-year anniversary with our organization as well. All right, all the celebrations are now out of the way, and we get into serious business here. So let's call the first regular meeting of the January 7th, 2020 meeting to order here with the adoption of the agenda. Can I get a motion for that, please? Councillor, with the addition, thank you, with the addition of sundry I-1, which is support letter for Family Resource Network expression of interest. Councillor Byer will make that motion. Any questions, comments, or concerns? Hearing none, all those in favor? Motion carried. Can I get a motion, please, of the minutes of the December 3rd, 2019 regular meeting of council be adopted as presented? Councillor Bevan will make that motion. Any questions, comments, or concerns? Hearing none, all those in favor? Motion carried. We're going to move on to public hearings. For bylaw number 2239, land use bylaw amendment adds medical clinic as a discretionary use to the C3 Highway Commercial District. And we have our Director of Planning and Engineering here. Martino Verhage, geez. Had way too much to eat over Christmas. Have we had any comments from the public regarding this?
At this point, none that aren't, who might be here, of course, but we have not received any negative comments towards this. I do have a presentation for council, which I will get into later in the reading, unless you'd like to see it before the hearing.
You can go into it right now.
Okay. I think it's the other one. Just a second, yeah. Mr. Chairman, members of council, this is bylaw 2239. The proposal for this one is quite simple. We are recommending to add medical clinics to the C3 or Highway Commercial District. Right now, the medical clinics use is allowed either as a permitted or discretionary use in all other commercial districts or most other commercial districts. However, looking at this use, it's ideally located within this type of corridor within the Setcher area of town between 5th and 1st Avenue, and as such, since it is allowed within those other districts and immediately within the areas it's currently being considered and proposed, we see no issue with putting it as a discretionary use. This allows the opportunity for those uses to be placed within our commercial core, but it also allows for any concerns that might be created by the location of such a facility to be contested as it's discretionary in nature. So this application has very little risk, but has quite a few benefits for the community.
All right.
Thank you,
Councillor Wilkinson.
To the chair. Am I mistaken, or is this where currently we're thinking that dentist office is going to be in there? So why wasn't this applied for getting this prior to the dentist, or does dentistry count as medical use?
Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, how we define medical clinics specifically within our land use bylaw, and we went through this during our cannabis review, is that anything that's regulated under certain professions acts, which could be dentists, chiropractors, some pharmacies, and so it allows for us to locate these in very many places. However, we did not allow for that use in the C3 district. So when this property was purchased, there was a lot of ideal uses in the zoning that's currently in place, because it is currently a commercial zone. It is C3. One of the uses they would like to have within the new building on 4th Avenue and 55th is a dentistry, and so
I've heard, right?
yeah, so they've promoted the application.
I guess I'm just wondering on the timeline.
I think that's up to the applicant to make those. Go ahead,
Mr. Chair, if I may, just on a point of procedure, I think questions from council to administration would be generally more appropriate later on when the bylaw is presented for reading and the public hearing is just generally to hear comments or questions from any members of the public that would be here to comment. And council will certainly have an opportunity to ask any relevant questions as the bylaws are presented later in this meeting for second and third reading.
Okay, thank you.
Just as the final piece of information for your consideration, though, is the red properties on this map show the current zoned highway commercial properties within the core of the town. And so these would be the places where if there was a clinic, they would be now have an avenue to be lawfully applied for and approved.
All right, thank you. We'll leave the questions until later on in the agenda when this comes back up.
Okay, well, this is regarding I had several calls on it.
Okay, so what calls did you have?
I had several calls on this, all positive. So we're saying feedback from the public. I have expressed that if they had an interest to come to me, but I did have several calls on it, and they were positive.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Chenard. Is anybody here that would like to speak for or against this proposed amendment to the land use bylaw? Hearing none, I will close the public hearing on item number 1. Item number 2, we're going to open the public hearing for bylaw number 2240, land use bylaw amendment, revises timelines and notification methods. Go ahead, Mr. Verhage.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As was discussed at first reading, I will be brief, but we are looking at making changes to the land use bylaw to implement changes that were provided under the Municipal Government Act to streamline timeframes and public notification within our development permit process. We've got in detail a few different comparisons of the changes. So for example, currently we have certain requirements under direct control districts. We would delete this entirely as necessary. We've got the requirement that councillors delegate may direct the development officer to post notices of a decision under section 19.3, but under the new changes, we've actually got a process that already addresses certain issues. A lot of this is really clerical and administrative in nature. The big takeaway and benefit for the public and the administration and overall that's provided by these options is we can now do digital advertising. We can streamline the time frame process so that instead of having to issue a permit on a Wednesday, wait for the paper to come out and maybe miss advertising, then get into the next paper and then wait till it's published and then say that's where the date starts where their appeal process could be appealed by the public. Let's say for a medical clinic, it would start the date that we approve the permit, post it on our website. We would still do public advertising through different methods. That's not necessarily being proposed for changes. What it does do is allow us to make formal notice on a website of the town. This has been implemented throughout municipalities across Alberta. So.
All right, thank you. Once again, we'll hold the questions until we discuss these bylaws later on in the meeting. Do we have anybody that is here to speak for or against the proposed amendments? Hearing none, I will close the public hearing for bylaw number 2240. We're going to move on to delegations. We have the Core Child Care Society here this evening, and I believe Councillor Bevan is going to declare a conflict of interest and recuse himself. So I'd like to welcome you ladies up. And it's just going to be Jennifer, okay?
I'm just here in support.
All right. So if you just want to maybe introduce yourself and take it away.
My name is Jennifer Gomez. Mr. Mayor and Council, I'm proud to be in front of you this evening to discuss what we would like to present to you. We are a new daycare in town, and I'm just going to go through my presentation if that's all right. I am currently the Managing Director of Core Child Care Society. We've been awaiting an audience with you since our first request was sent in on October 3rd. We do acknowledge that there is a due process in place and that we had to wait and talk with FCSS for quite a while. After a few phone calls between myself and FCSS, there was an on-site visit to CR Renovations, and we still patiently awaited our time to be in front of you to discuss our request. When I submitted a request for follow-up on November the 26th, to see if we would have the opportunity to present to you. We were told that council had been extremely busy and that we wouldn't have the opportunity to meet until the new year. So it's been a long journey, but we are very excited to be in front of you now. So thank you for your time. We are a new childcare facility. We opened our doors on July 22nd, 2019. We are located on the east side of Edson at 4632 3rd Avenue. Some of the parents who have children enrolled in our daycare program also have children who attend elementary school. And they have asked if, they've been wondering if we would be opening up an out-of-school care program. And it just so happened that we knew that who was next to us in our building was building their own, and they were going to be moving out. So in September, the opportunity to expand and lease the other portion of the building for a before and after school care program, it became available. So we are this evening requesting to be considered for a grant from the town of Edson to assist with our salaries so that we may have the opportunity to offer quality programming at a price point that the residents of the town of Edson and Yellowhead County can afford. The Weekly Anchor and the Edson Leader both had news articles informing the residents of Edson about how much was being provided to the Edson and District Boys and Girls Club this past March. In the article, it mentioned that it was just under $200,000 of in-kind funding, which also included $40,000 in cash that they received. The Boys and Girls Club is a national chain that has been part of this town for over 35 years, and that's fantastic. I'm not saying it shouldn't be here, none of that. The amount of in-kind funding that they have received over this period of time has definitely been well over the $3 million mark. We have one existing local program in the town of Edson provided by the Daycare Society of Edson, and one that will soon be offering before and after school care, which is through us at Core Child Care Society. We are offering care for children aged 5 to 12, so as long as they're registered for grade 1 and up to 12 years of age. Both are nonprofit societies that do not receive the same in-kind funding opportunities from the town of Edson, not to mention the grants that are specific to the Boys and Girls Club from the town of the Boys and Girls Club do receive grants from Boys and Girls Club of Canada, and last year it totaled over $24,000. And according to their audited statements that were posted on their website in June of 2019, their program revenue generated $192,845. We both, the Daycare Society of Edson and also Core Child Care Society, have commercial mortgages and market leases to pay that far outweigh the $400 per month that the town rents Griffiths Park to the Boys and Girls Club. Not to mention that when the Boys and Girls Club rents out Griffiths Parks for birthday parties or other activities, which in 2018 generated $3,240, that's 8 months worth of free rent. We pay for all of our utilities, not just our telephone and internet. We pay for any and all maintenance required to the buildings we lease or own, of which is also provided as in-kind donation to the Boys and Girls Club. Core Child Care Society is asking for the same consideration that is given to the Boys and Girls Club from the town of Edson. However, when I first sent in the request, I was told by FCSS that the Boys and Girls Club has come to depend on this funding and that they cannot take it away from them. It was also mentioned to myself by FCSS that the funding would not be helpful if it was split between two programs. I respectfully disagree. Any amount that we receive from the town would be a tremendous help, even if it is a split between all three programs, and it would be supporting local programming and not national. We respectfully request that all programs be treated equally so that we may all be on even ground when it comes to costs to the families of Edson. I wish to thank you for your time in listening to what I've had to say, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, thank you very much, Jennifer, for your presentation. I will open the floor to questions. Councillor Chenard.
I would thank you for your presentation. I guess I would direct this towards administration. We're referring to the Boys and Girls Club, which I'm not for or against, but there is a daycare center in town right now, so do we help them? Because there's another daycare that's been around for 20-some years. So we would have to, I would assume you would be equal to them. So then I would be just questioning the fact, are we funding them as a daycare?
We're not
Go ahead.
Okay.
We aren't requesting it for the daycare side.
Okay.
We're requesting the funds for our out-of-school care that we will be providing. We are hoping to have our license by the middle of January, if not by February 1st.
So then if I can,
Go ahead, Councillor Schnarr.
just to clarify then, so what you're requesting is funding to be equal to what the Boys and Girls Club, because I know we do fund them for special programming and stuff. So what you're saying, you'd be doing similar to the Boys and Girls Club?
Yes.
Okay, so that's where I'm just trying to clarify, because if it's strictly daycare, I believe we have not funded the other daycares, they are standalone. But if you're doing equal to the Boys and Girls Club, well then we would have to consider it and then look at what exactly we're funding for what thing. Like, I'm all for programming, but on the same token, have to remember I am spending taxpayers' dollars.
Exactly, yes.
All right, thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Curry?
Through the chair, do you know right now, do you have any idea about registration and how many students you're expecting to have, and then how much space you have?
Mr. Mayor,
Go ahead.
we currently have no registrations. Only reason being is that I wanted to ensure that we had a licensing date. And once we have that licensing date, I want to then allow the parents to know that yes, we do have, our registration is now open and that we will be going forward. We have currently made arrangements through the Edson Seniors Transportation Society that we will be purchasing our punch cards and having our children transported through their society to all of the different schools and back again.
In this space, how much,
It's approximately 3,000 square feet.
so how many students would you licensing?
If measurements worked out the way that I think they would be, it would be about 59 children.
Thank you. Councillor Wilkinson?
Through the chair, I believe in your letter you said Grand Yellowhead was going to fund bus the students.
That was earlier. We were in discussions with Grand Yellowhead Public School Division. However, they got back to us and said that it wasn't going to work.
No, I wondered at the cost because they're short on funds as we are as well.
Yes.
And then you talked about the revenue that the Boys and Girls Club get from renting out for birthday parties. Is that not something you'd be able to do in your own facility as well then too?
That is one of our fundraisers that we wish to do.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions from council? Councillor Curry?
Through the chair, this I think could actually be to administration about this. Do we know as far as funding grants, typically just in most grant situations, you're looking at how long you've had finances for? And so that would be a concern of like just auditing and how long. So how long was the Boys and Girls even up and running before we started providing grants? Would we know that? Or historically?
Go ahead.
Thank you through the chair. Certainly not off the top of my
Yeah,
head, but we can certainly try to generate some history there. Certainly, the town has been contributing to the programming efforts of the Boys and Girls Clubs for a considerable period of time, but I don't have that exact information off the top of my head.
Just to Councillor Curry's question there, it is my understanding, he used to be the president of the Boys and Girls Club, that the program was actually started through the town of Edson.
Okay.
Historically, through some people in the community. It was a partnership. So right from the beginning, the town was involved in that program.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Councillor Wilkinson.
Through the chair too, I did do a lot of research on the Boys and Girls Club just to see what the difference was from just a straight daycare, because of course it's national and in the States, which I didn't know. And it is, I think, to help needy children and also to build character, to develop different characteristics. They had lots of write-ups about people who had gone to the Boys and Girls Club and how it helped them. It was really very educational, really enjoyed it. And then I see why the town did partner with the Boys and Girls Club.
Okay, so if there's no other questions for Ms. Gomez, thank you very much for your presentation today. We won't be making a decision today, but we will take it under consideration, and administration will follow up with you.
All right, thank you so
All
much.
right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, reading of bylaws. Can I get a motion, please, that council give second reading to bylaw number 2239, which, let's get Councilor Peck back in here.
Good catch there, Mr. Chair.
Really snappy.
birthday cake.
Oh, he's having birthday cake.
Yeah, I should have thought about it.
Thank you. There's a little bit of birthday cake icing on your mustache there, Russ.
Yeah, it's good back there, tell you. Cut it in lots of chunks for you guys.
Perfect.
All right, can I get a motion, please, that council give second reading to bylaw number 2239, which amends Town of Edson land use bylaw number 2070 by adding medical clinic as a discretionary use to the C3 Highway Commercial District, and Councillor Sorensen will make that motion. Any questions, comments, or concerns? We do have Mr. Verhage back up here. Go ahead, Councillor Chouinard.
Just one for information, when the chiropractors went in just east of it, they would be considered medical. So I believe when we passed that, we did it as a special condition. So you're virtually doing housekeeping, making it easier for developers in the future to develop. Would that be correct?
Yeah, so one of the, Mr. Chairman, members of council, one of the processes we've looked at is we are looking at revising our land use bylaw, and we're looking at depth and ways to work that in. However, the reality is the world still continues on, and so new business needs to be able to be accommodating if we don't have our final bylaw ready. There's a variety of uses within our land use bylaw where we use the similar uses discretion, or we have definitions that are odd. For example, we do not have a definition for auto dealerships. We allow for the storage and retail of things like farm equipment or vehicles or this, which is not something we would typically do. So we've been identifying those types of things, and as we see a need come up by industry and other residential users, we then promote those things to be addressed immediately, such as this type of use.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions, comments, or concerns? Councillor Bevin?
Sure. So that Edson pharmacy that's coming in, that'd be covered under that too, eh? That Edson pharmacy?
Mr.
Beside
Chairman,
Subway.
through to Councillor Bevin, can you remind me of the location?
Right beside Subway. That's just building right next to Subway, says Edson pharmacy coming or whatever, so that is covered under this too then.
It's between 49th and 50th on 4th Avenue.
4th Avenue.
So in our opinion.
Go ahead.
If I may, based on, and Mr. Verhage, you can correct me if I'm wrong, it looks as though Subway is on between 50th and 49th, and that is not highlighted, which would suggest to me that it just has a different zoning than C3.
Might be C2.
So it wouldn't be covered by
So it would be
this,
covered by
but is, I would guess probably C1 would be my guess as zoning, and I would suggest it's probably just an appropriate use for that zone.
And Mr. Chairman, I can confirm that both the C1 and C2 districts do allow for this as an existing use. C3 was the only persistent commercial use where we did not allow for this to be accommodated.
That's interesting. Councillor Byer.
Through the chair to Mr. Verhage. So mine isn't necessarily on adding the medical portion to this, but it's on the front yard, the minimum setback requirements on the front yard. I know over the years, different developments along the highway have, maybe this has been adjusted over time. Can you kind of explain what it means, the minimum front yard setback shall be no less than 6 meters? What that's referring to, and then it kind of talks about the parking.
Mr. Chairman, through to Councillor Byer, the minimum front yard setback, so there are definitions within our bylaw that define what is considered a front yard. There can be multiple front yards depending on if you're a corner lot or you have roads on both sides for some much larger areas. The setback means that there should be no structures between the property line and that 6 meter buffer. Typically that's set out so that you can deal with issues such as service locations, transportation, loading areas, etc. But that's also to ensure if you have a zero setback, that would be the best example of that would be downtown, where you have town-owned sidewalk and immediately you have building. The 6 meter setback is approximately equivalent to the kind of setback you would see between the curb edge in, say, Hillendale and the edge of many of the attached garages. So to give you a massing there, that'd be.
So if I may add to that, nothing else inside the description of the C3 zoning will be adjusted. It will simply be the addition of medical clinic as a use. That is the only adjustment that is being recommended at this point.
And
Yeah.
if I may, Mr.
Right.
Chairman, just as information for council generally, when an application is brought forward by a applicant, although staff might, when they review a district, change many things or consider those things, we would not add other items to that amendment, because if they were controversial and caused the bylaw to fail, that would be unfair to the person who is applying for a very specific change.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions, comments, or concerns? Hearing none, all those in favor? Motion carried. Can I get a motion, please, that council give third reading to bylaw number 2239? Councillor Chenard will make that motion. Any questions, comments, or concerns? Just would like to say that I'm glad to see a development going up in our community during these economic times. It looks like it's going to be a wonderful addition to our community, and I'm happy to support this. All those in favor? Motion carried. Can I get a motion, please, that council give second reading to bylaw number 2240, which textually amends Town of Edson Land Use Bylaw number 2070 by revising timelines and notification methods? Councillor Bevan will make that motion. Any questions, comments, or concerns? Councillor Chenard.
Like I spoke about in committee of the whole, I do like the changes, but just for mentioning is in some cases when we try all notifications, like, and somebody forgets, and going by the amount of development we had in the past, are we still doing this sometime drive out to the property or maybe do a phone call if someone virtually forgets, like they're developing and we've tried all the methods, email, and they're not responding.
Go ahead, Sue.
If I may, thank you for the question, Councillor Chenard. The proposed changes here are not notifications for developers. They are public notifications of development. So there wouldn't be any individual or specific notifications under this process, other than the already robust practices around adjacent and affected properties during the application and the approval process. But once the decision is made, this is simply a general public notification process for the whole community.
Okay. Just wanted clarification. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments, or concerns? Hearing none, all those in favor? Motion carried. Can I get a motion, please, that council give third reading to bylaw number 2240? Councillor Curry will make that motion. Any questions, comments, or concerns? Hearing none, all those in favor? Motion carried. Can I get a motion, please, that council adopt the proposed amendments to council remuneration policy L-C-1 as presented? Councillor Byer will make that motion. Any questions, comments, or concerns? Go ahead, Councillor Chenard.
On the first part where it says when you're appointed to a board and there is a amount of money paid, so an example like for Evergreens, where it is paid over and above, we did agree to salaries, but with this said, that's always in play, so I believe that if it is paid by that board, it's no cost to the taxpayer, so I believe we leave it the way it was. I see no problem with the way it had ran.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Chenard. Any other further questions, comments? Councillor Sorensen.
Through the chair to administration, I thank administration for the wording change. I think it clarifies that last sentence of exceptional meetings or events section. Can administration remind me, is there a procedure or policy around how to designate a meeting as exceptional?
Go ahead, Stuart Ercott.
Thank you. Current process would just require a resolution of council, which just means it would have to be presented for council consideration, and at their discretion they could approve.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Chenard.
One more question, and same as goes down where we talk about where we're going to make changes instead of the present way where we're buying t-shirts and etc. jackets, where we're changing it to $500 per council, up to $500. You don't have to spend it. I disagree with that. I like the other way because I'll use an example. When youth council came to us, they all come in different sizes, shapes, but when they did show up with their attire, they looked like a group. So as I mentioned before in committee of the whole, that I disagree with that end of it changing it. I like us to look as a team.
All right, thank you, Councillor Chenard. Councillor Wilkinson.
I agree with Councillor Chenard. I don't know what we could do, but when we go to AUMA or FCM, I'd like us to have some common thing, like just to highlight us. We don't need to be like Star Trek people. But
We will never do that.
Squirrel tails?
But I just think it is nice to promote our town. You know, when you're talking about the Edson squirrel and they obviously made the peanuts and handed them out and all this stuff. Let's get some ideas going and do something to sell ourselves when we're out and about.
Thank you, CEO Derico.
Thank you, and certainly I think in response to both Councillor Wilkinson and Councillor Chenard's comment, I don't think this policy precludes council at all from coordinating an effort to have a shared aesthetic in terms of attending conferences. They would just have to have conversation, and any material that was purchased would just go against that allowance. So I certainly think the flexibility for that remains, as well as then the customization for individuals in terms of comfort and preference, I think is enhanced in that way.
Thank you. I'll just make a comment. The reason we made the changes to the clothing allowance is earlier on in this term we tried to purchase some goods and we couldn't get an agreement. Some people didn't like the style, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So this allows us to get our own stuff if we so see fit. But I do agree that having the same sort of style is always helpful. At least the same colors of jackets and that sort of thing. So I think that opportunity still is there. But this will allow us to go ahead and purchase things that we may be missing. For example, if you've been on council for a while, you probably have enough golf shirts, but you may need something else. You'll be able to do that. And for like things like FCM, I think, or AUMA, I think we've had some conversations about promoting local companies and getting some materials that way. So we can certainly have those conversations offline. Anyway, that's my 2 cents.
One final question.
Go ahead.
Can we get a squirrel suit for $500?
We have a squirrel suit. Are you volunteering, Councillor Wilkinson?
I'll do it.
I'm the student, I'll wear it.
We'll, if I may, we'll put the intern away on the sewing machine right away here.
All right. Oh man, we're nutty. Oh yeah, no, for sure. I'll call the question. All those in favor? All those opposed? Motion carried. Can I get a motion, please, that council direct administration to enter into the, Councillor Chenard will make, declare conflict of interest in
I'm
the
gonna
other
go
room.
with some of that cake.
Can I get a motion, please, that council direct administration to enter into the memorandum of agreement, Edson landfill funding agreement between the town of Edson and Yellowhead County as presented? Councillor Byer will make that motion. CEO Darracott, do you want to speak to this? Is this the first time coming to council?
Yes, thank you. Typically, we would love to send this through to a committee meeting first, seeing as how it expired December 31st, and that the nature of the agreement is basically unchanged. We felt it was appropriate to ask for council's consideration of entering into the cost sharing agreement. There's only one material adjustment here, which previously recycling was included in this agreement, as there are some ongoing efforts to work with the Recycling Society on a revamped dynamic. Both county administration and town administration felt it was appropriate to deal with any recycling agreements separate from the landfill agreement, and to carry on with what has been a successful partnership under this proposed agreement.
All right, thank you. Councillor Sorensen.
Through the chair to administration, should I assume then that the existing agreement on the recycling side will continue in the interim?
Thank
Go
you. Through the chair, yes, Councillor Sorensen, is my understanding that is the expectation of both the town and the county, that we would continue to operate as status quo until a new arrangement was mutually reached.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions, comments, or concerns? I'll just make a comment that I'm very thankful for the partnership that we have with Yellowhead County, and as I think all of our council is, and I look forward to continuing to work with them to service all of our community's needs on both sides of the border, even though it's invisible. So, all those in favor? Motion carried. Do you want to get Councillor Chenard for me?
Sure.
Thank you.
You could build a wall and it wouldn't be invisible.
All right, can I get a motion, please, that council support and the mayor sign the attached regional letter of support for the expression of interest proposals by the 4 communities of Jasper, Hinton, Edson, and Yellowhead County. Councilor Curry will make that motion, and we have Ms. Byers here. If you want to speak to it and give us an update, I know we've had lots of discussions about this new initiative from the provincial government.
There's really not a lot to add if you have already read the letter. It's really just something that each of our municipalities are going to be putting in our Family Resource Network package, in our proposals. Everyone's choosing how they put it in, whether it be as an appendix or right on top or what have you. But essentially what it says is that what they were proposing, being that we somehow regionalize this type of service, we all agreed that there's just no way for us to do that and actually serve the families well. So as a region, we just said, you know, please consider each community and their differences, and that, so we're all putting in our own proposals, and we're asking that Jasper be our hub, so to speak. As I spoke in the last meeting, I think we all feel that they're best situated to do that, and that's essentially what we're putting forward in our package.
All right, I'll open the floor to questions, comments, or concerns. Councilor Curry and then Councilor Bevan.
Maybe. Go ahead. Maybe.
Through the chair, I just want to say a huge thank you to your team for how well you guys worked and for all you have done. I know this has been a really extensive process, and I think it just speaks really well to our community and to our region that there was no question about you guys sitting down and partnering, and I think it's just really fantastic that we have that, so thank you.
All right, Councilor Bevan.
Yes, it was the same way as what Councilor Curry said, and I know different agencies in town here also had conversations and meetings on this too, and they were wondering how we were going to go about it, and that now they got some clarity here of what's going to happen. And I did hear that a lot of them thought Jasper would probably be the best to be the hub, and that will be in the spoken because I know we tossed it around too. So I think now people will see us moving forward, and they'll be getting some information coming back hopefully.
All right, Councilor Chenard.
Yeah, actually, thanks being on the FCS board when I went to your meeting. All the information I heard at the meeting helps me clarify, so I'm in full support, because prior I made a comment about why doesn't Edson take the lead. But after being at your meeting, and I agree, all the people in the room, you went through a lot of work, so I'm in fully support of what you've come up with. It wasn't, you know, there was you in the room, but in that when I got to hear from all the other towns, I understand why you're doing it, so I'm in full support. Good job.
All right, Councilor Wilkinson.
Through the chair, Tanya, thank you so much for doing this, and again, for looking after the citizens of Edson. That's what it does, thanks.
All right, any other questions, comments, or concerns? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Motion carried. Council committee reports. We are going back to December the 3rd.
It's like last decade.
Yeah, last decade. Dun, dun, dun. And we're going to start with Councilor Wilkinson.
Well, December 5th, we had an organizational meeting for Evergreens Foundation, and I got elected chair. And I just realized it's a whole bunch of work, but that's fine. I've been married before, but I've spent 2 days preparing myself, so I'm very happy. And we held it in Jasper at the Alpine Lodge. That's where we held our meeting. And they just have excellent food there. They have a chef in the lodge. And I went around and talked to people, and there was a young family in there just eating a meal you can pay to eat there. And so if you're in Jasper, stop in and eat. It really was absolutely fabulous food. Right on the 11th, the Ministerial Association hosted us to lunch again, which really was certainly appreciated. And I think that was it, besides Christmas holidays.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Sorensen.
Okay, on December 10th, we had a committee of the whole meeting. December 11th, I was at the Edson District Chamber of Conference meeting. They reported that the Santa Claus parade went well, although it was down 10 floats from the previous year. They just say that was due to the economy and pressures of business. They are looking at the Business Awards Night this year, of holding it on a Thursday and having it a shortened agenda, so tightening it up getting you in and out in a few hours and having it on a weekday instead of on a weekend, which ties up your whole weekend, so you can't leave town. They had an Christmas party. The chamber Christmas party was sold out, so they were happy about that. And they are planning tomorrow to have their monthly chamber meeting, and they're having the RCMP there to present on the recent fires within town, so that'll be very interesting, as well as Youth Council will be there to present their goals on dealing with the plastic bag issue. And then yesterday, January 6th, I was at the Youth Council meeting, and I will allow someone else to present on that one. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Barr.
On December 10th, I had the Committee of the Whole meeting, and yesterday, January 6th, the Youth Council meeting. We went over the strategic planning items that we kind of had a few meetings ago for information, and they kind of went through and mentioned a bunch of different things that they had, ideas on or wanted to know a little bit more about. And the smoking bylaw, they were interested that when that comes back to council before it gets passed, that they get an opportunity to look at it, because they are affected by it quite a bit, and they have so much exposure to it with smoking, vaping, and cannabis, that they want to make sure that they just have an opportunity to be a part of that as a solution, right, to make it better for everybody. So it was really interesting to hear some of the comments and the things they were interested in, and that's all for that.
All right, thank you, Councillor Sharp.
Is it okay to ask questions first before I do my report?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, the smoking and the plastic bags, they are gonna report to us on that then? The pros and cons of it?
No. So the plastic bag ban is kind of their own strategic thing that they
Okay.
want to do throughout this year, and the smoking bylaw was just as the administration sent us the information. I think it was the last meeting or the meeting before, on the different departments and where that is progressing on our strategic planning session, and the smoking bylaw is in there, and they just had a comment on it. They would like to be able to see it before it was passed.
Okay, thanks, and I'll do my report. On December 6th, I attended Jasper for the Community Futures, wasn't their AGM, it was their planning meeting, correct?
Strategic planning.
Strategic planning, so I went to the Christmas party, and I will let the councillor that knows more about it than I do, because I'm the alt, so I went in Councillor Bevan's place on the 6th. On December 10th, we had our Committee of the Whole. 11th, I also attended the Pastors' Luncheon. That's it for my report.
Councillor Curry.
Okay, jump by myself, you guys. On December 6th, I had the Board of Directors meeting in strategic planning for Community Futures. I'm just trying to, things that I need to tell you guys. One thing that we had that we were planning to do some of the Smart Start stuff here. It's happening in Hinton, and they were going to bring it here, and we were really excited for it to spread out. We have found out that it actually, you can only host it in one community per license. So we would actually have to buy the license. So that will, I think at one point, you'll probably hear about it. They'll probably come and present on it. The town of Hinton did buy the license for theirs, and it was $5,000. So it's kind of one of those things that if we wanted to do it here, that they would need to, that we would have to be willing to put that money in for that to happen. Kind of some big things to know. They started the Head Start in Business program for the kids at West Haven. And she was blown away, and just some of the things that she was telling us were amazing. Like, they actually had to go through, make up their own company, come up with their own logo, how they were going to sell it. It was fascinating to hear. Calendar invite just came. I'll send it the date to Kayla for us. Lemonade Day is June 20th. And I think that is about it for now. It was really just a lot of updating. I guess a thing that we're currently discussing is that we have been given more freedom. So we have interest, that we used to be able to take so much interest payments out of what we had in the bank. That used to always have to go to specific programming. Now they're letting us use it for operating, which allows some more to keep staff, to guarantee things. And another thing that they have given us some permission on is some increasing of loans. And so there was some conversation on how we felt about that. Would we willing to increase loans, and how that would work? Typically, we give out a loan as an office, and then if somebody needs more than that loan, then we would ask another office to provide it. So that was just that conversation. So there are just some major changes. Those are two major changes in community futures, that we can use that for operating, and that we have the ability to increase loans if we want. So that was that one. And then I had committee of the whole on the 10th, pastors and civics lunch too on the 11th, and then the Edson Recycling Society. Sorry, just let me put these ones up. So some good news, huge 2 plastics out, only 2 plastic things left so far. What am I trying to say? Troy?
Bales.
Bales, thank you. Pine Grove is just, they've been still doing lots of PD with the teachers to really reinforce the schools. Pine Grove just had a challenge to see who needs help. So they came in and they actually went through right before Christmas and audited them, and then figured out which classes needed some more support. They said it was really fantastic. They already have 21 metric tons of twine. And so that is the newest thing that we're doing agricultural-wise, so figuring that out. So the youth council did the compost with the youth council students in the spring, so they're looking at doing a tour with them. Take it or leave it, so something that has changed with that, they take a truckload once a week. Instead, they have switched now, and they are going to the Goodwill in Edmonton. They were going to Salvation Army, but the Goodwill just has similar value statements, and at the Goodwill, every, not only is it nonprofit, it'll be now 1 trailer per month. And it is, everything is recycled. So unlike before, if they went to the Salvation Army and it wasn't sold there, it went to a landfill, which obviously doesn't meet the value statements of that. So anything at the Goodwill that doesn't get sold is then recycled. And the big kind of thing that interesting enough maybe for admin just kind of be aware of, and that is that the architectural is not open yet. They are already dealing with a ton of vandalism. So another thing for COP maybe to talk to, and by law, but they have already had to set up extra, they had already done fencing, and they had already done wiring, and now they've already done up extra lights, and they had already had somebody come in, cut through wires, cut through holes. So that is a thing, but when it does get started, they said they have lots there. And that's about it for them. I think something that to discuss with maybe the youth council is the difference of there's a huge difference in what is available for selling of plastic if we eliminate like plastic film. So clean plastic actually does have a really decent market, but any of that plastic film is really not marketable. And so just something to talk about and how we go about that, and if they thought that's a good idea to look at that process. And I think that is it.
All right, thank you. Councilor Bevan.
On the 5th, I had a senior transportation meeting here in that. They're doing well. They're still looking for more bus drivers here in that. They did have a few apply, but when they got their check, they didn't pass the check in that, so they will not be using them. So they're still looking. It's very hard to get somebody to come and drive for them in that. One of the biggest thing was that Sam Block, the assistant manager for the lodge up there, has resigned. And that, so she was no longer going to be there. She's moving on to do something different. She didn't say exactly what it was, but they're looking for an assistant manager up there right now on that. They also said that they were more than willing to have a voting member on their board and that. They have no problem with that, so they said that whoever's sitting on there as a council will automatically be a voting member. They will get hold of the town. They've asked Guy to come to their meeting here this coming Thursday to give his little presentation and ask him some questions, and he can ask them questions. So he has been invited, and I believe he is going to attend. I haven't had any word if he's not going to attend, but I do believe he is going to attend in that. On the 10th Committee of the Whole, ministerial meeting on the 11th, and on the 19th had an RSC meeting. And that was my report.
All right, thank you. On see here, December 11th, I attended the Ministerial Association dinner. I think you were there as well,
That was
Councillor
it,
Evans.
yes.
And then I had a meeting with, if council will allow me to elaborate here, with MLA Long. Sorry, just going back on what date that was. We had a good discussion on Friday the 13th. Talked about traffic lights in the recent letter we got from Minister McIver. So I will be sending him some additional correspondence about concerns about timelines on the traffic lights at 55th and 4th Avenue. But we did talk about pedestrian safety and the highway corridor and some of the concerns our council has. Also talked about the homelessness issue. We will be hopefully having MLA Nixon joining us in our community here in the next month or two. If you're not aware, the Nixon family is behind the mustard seed, and Jeremy actually ran the mustard seed for many, many years in Calgary. So he is looking. I spoke with him yesterday, and he's looking to make a trip out here to talk about what he knows and his experiences as a part of the homelessness task force. So had a good discussion with MLA Long about that. And then on January 6th, Youth Council meeting yesterday was a really good meeting. The Mayor for the Day program unfortunately only had one applicant. But the application was amazing. I won't give all the details on that. I think we're going to try to have the youth actually come to council and present, but it's something that I think we as a council and administration can actually accomplish. So we're pretty excited about that, and I don't think I have anything else to add from youth council. And that's my report.
I'd like to add a comment about youth council.
Go ahead.
You need to be complimented on that. I think I've talked to some parents with their kids, and they were talking just how well that's gone over and how the kids are really growing in being part of it. And they really thought that it was a wonderful thing. And so do I. And look at, we should give a real shout out to Sobeys, who are going plastic bagless.
Mm-hmm.
So already we can think their actions took place, you know. At least there's some pressure on from the town, which is really good. But really congratulations for thinking of that idea, because it's very nice to get the youth involved.
And we've been very fortunate. We've had lots of great youth involved.
Exceptional job.
And the other thing I should mention is looking at hosting a council meeting sometime at Parkland School in the next few months. So,
And Holy Redeemer too.
yeah, well, that would be, yes, yeah,
We're gonna alternate years.
I think so.
Oh, alternate
Yeah.
years, okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah,
good.
so,
Oh, perfect.
yeah, and I think, I don't know if the councilors on youth council have any comments, but I think the kids enjoyed being at the council meeting just prior to Christmas, so.
And really enjoyed the recycling conference too.
Yeah.
It felt power.
Yeah, and they certainly want to come back and talk to Councillor Chenault, so.
Actually, what my comment is, like when we went to HRH and we were at the school, but what I'd like to see differently, what I expected, if we do it at Parkland, invite the Parkland students to attend, so there is a larger audience. To me, that would be more, more fitting, is we are going to the school, and I believe, it'd be a lot better turnout for the.
HRH students were invited, but they got to choose which session they went to, and they didn't really choose to go to ours, so we did have a discussion about that, maybe that they may have to be forced. I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing, but.
Well, the school division, they used to come up to the schools and have their board meetings out there.
Yeah.
And the kids were in there and they watched them.
Yeah.
done.
So. Awesome. We'll move on from that. We have no financial items. Questions from media in public regarding items from this council meeting. Mr. Moore.
Yes, well, two questions. So the paper bags, I was wondering if Sobeys, if anybody's heard of Sobeys, is going to use paper bags instead of plastic bags.
Maybe bring your own.
Yeah. You'd have to talk to Sobeys. I don't know the details of their program, but they are stopping using plastic bags
Yeah,
corporately, but I don't know what their alternatives are.
yeah, okay. And the other question was clothing allowance. Does this allow for matching cowboy hats sometimes?
If councillors so wished, I suppose that could be something.
I was more looking for squirrel. to
Yeah. Go ahead, Councillor Schnarr.
Just to comment back, we do have matching toques.
Yes.
Good.
Yeah. All right, any other questions? No? All right, we will take a 5-minute recess and then we'll go into our closed camera meeting. I'll call the question. Can I get a motion, please, to go into the closed meeting session regarding personnel matter under FOIP section 17.4F and 19.2. Councillor Chenard will make that motion. All those in favor? Motion carried. So we are out of camera. Can I get a motion, please, to authorize the mayor to conclude the CAO performance review as discussed in camera? Councillor Wilkinson will make that motion. All those in favor? Motion carried. And can I get a motion for adjournment, please? Councillor Chenard will make that motion. All those in favor? Motion carried. Thanks for watching.